guys, I'm Jessie Quinn from Cup of Books, and today I'm talking about Redefining Realness, My Path to Womanhood, Identity, Love, and so much more by Janet Mock. Redefining Realness is the memoirs of a transgender activist, Janet Mock, and in these memoirs she tells the story of growing up as a young trans girl of color. Within the very first few pages of this book, Janet Mock talks about how she often is held up as sort of an ideal because she is pretty and she is thin and she is heteronormative and she's young and she has a lot of privilege, and so within the first few pages she immediately addressed that and talked about how that has its own problems, particularly when people look to her as a role model. And yeah, that was kind of the point where I realized I was going to absolutely love this book. There's so much in here that deserves to be talked about that it's really difficult to try and sum it up in a under 4 minutes, hopefully, review. What I love about Redefining Realness is just how accessible it is. It's meant to reach a really wide audience, and the writing definitely shows that. But even though it is meant to reach a wide audience, it's meant to be read by folks who are both cisgender and transgender alike, it also is very unapologetic about the fact that this is a book written for trans girls of color. It's written for a broad audience, but that is the audience that matters the most. I love the way Janet Mock contextualizes her experiences growing up in terms of the realities of many transgender women of color, particularly in the United States. The way Janet Mock describes her experiences is just so honest. There's a lot of discussion of how her different identities as someone who was poor and someone who is biracial and someone who is trans all sort of intersect to shape and influence her experiences as a young girl growing up. There are some reviews that I've read that have expressed disappointment with the fact that Mock chose to write about her childhood and being a teenager, a trans teenager, instead of necessarily writing about her career in her 20s. And I feel that those reviews somewhat miss the point of this memoir. It is telling stories that don't often get told, particularly in mainstream literature, fiction, nonfiction, just mainstream books, and I think that's incredibly important and really refreshing because it is different. But at the same time, there is so much to relate to and the stories are so engaging. I don't really have anything bad necessarily to say about this one. Sometimes the writing didn't really work for me, but given that the rest of the book is so damn good, it doesn't really matter that much. This is probably my favorite read of the year so far. It's certainly one of the most interesting things I've read, and I would highly recommend it to everyone. So if you haven't had the chance to check this out, you definitely should. Janet Mock's life and the bits of her life she shares with us are very fascinating, make for really interesting and engaging stories, and if that's something you like, highly recommend it. I gave this one like 4.5 stars on my Goodreads account, or at least I would have if I were able to do half stars. It was so good and I recommend it so highly, so yeah, go out there and find it so we can talk about it.